This is the Samsung Galaxy S23. This phone came out a bit over a year ago now, so I wanted to talk about how well it held up over the past 12 months and is it still a good choice and should you possibly get it today in 2024 and beyond. So let's just start it up here. And while it's starting up, I want to talk about the design. So this phone has an aluminum frame with glass on front and back of the phone. And it's not just any glass. This is actually Gorilla Glass Victus 2. So it does have a bit of an edge when it comes to scratch and drop resistance. Also, this aluminum frame that I mentioned is not regular aluminum. This is actually something that Samsung calls armor aluminum. And again, it's a bit better when it comes to drop and scratch resistance. So it's supposed to be a tank of a phone, but is it really? Actually, yeah, I kind of like how it held up so far. And I actually really like the design of this phone just in general. I like the simplicity of it, the camera placement, these rounded edges. It's just overall a really, really pretty phone, at least in my opinion. You get the volume rockers and the power button on the right side of the phone, while the left side is completely clear, as it is on all Galaxy phones. And on the bottom here, we have stereo speakers, USB-C, and the SIM tray. And I think it's fired up now. All right. And one more thing that I like when it comes to the design is the size of the phone itself. This is a 6.1 inch phone or a 6.1 inch display. And in my opinion, this is just the perfect size of a phone. I'm really not a fan of those huge phones like the Ultras and the Pro Maxes of the world. So this is something that just fits in my hand perfectly. I can use it mostly with one hand without too much trouble, and it fits in my pocket. It's just overall a really nice compact phone. And when it comes to that display, like I said, it's 6.1 inches. It's a dynamic AMOLED display with a 120 Hz refresh rate. And to me, coming from a regular iPhone 15, it really is refreshing. It has 1200 nits of brightness, but peaking at 750 nits. So that's outdoors in direct sunlight for a limited period of time. And in my opinion, that's more than enough for everyday use. And you can see it very clearly, even outside on a sunny day, like I said. So at least while I was using it, there were not a lot of situations where I felt like this phone is not bright enough. Also, the colors and contrast are great. It has a pixel density of 425 pixels per inch. So when it comes to the display, it's definitely a win in my opinion. It's just great, even for media consumption, Netflix, stuff like that. Aside from its smaller size, everything else about it is just absolutely top of the line. Now, when it came out, this phone was running Android 13, but now it's already upgradable to Android 14 with One UI 6 or currently 6.1. Samsung actually promises 4 years of software updates, so 4 Androids or One UI versions, and 5 years of security updates. So this is excellent, and I'm really happy that someone on the Android side of things is going this route. I was always a fan of Apple just updating their phones for like 5, 6, and sometimes even 7 years. So having 4 years of updates on the S23 is a step in the right direction. One additional thing that I want to mention is that with the newer series, with the S24 series, Samsung actually promises 7 years of software updates for those phones. So if that's something that's really important to you, you might want to consider getting the S24 instead of the 23. But in my opinion, most people upgrade their phones every 2 or 3 years, maybe 4 in some cases. So I don't feel like 7 years is necessary. But like I said, it is a good addition. If you want to buy like a used phone, 2 years from now, you will still get additional updates for years to come. And also, Samsung brought a lot of great unique features with One UI in the past year plus since One UI 5 came out. I'm actually really happy with this software, and I was always a huge fan of what Pixel is doing with vanilla Android or that clean Android experience. But lately I'm actually loving Samsung's approach even more than Pixel's. Okay, I've been talking way too much about this. Let's run through some specs real quick. This phone comes with 8 gigs of RAM and 128, 256, or 512 gigs of storage. Now, those 8 gigs of RAM, in my opinion, are more than enough. It rarely reloads apps and stuff like that. And when it comes to the storage, that's really a personal choice. I actually never needed a lot of storage. I use Google Drive, Google Photos, iCloud. So I don't actually store a lot of stuff on my phone. And I'm more than fine with that base 128 gigs. But if you're someone that's taking a lot of photos and videos and storing them directly on the phone locally, you might want to consider going with the 256 version. just to be safe. When it comes to performance, this phone has the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 as a 4nm chip, and I don't really have much to say about it. Like, it's a top of the line chip, it's really fast. The phone never lags, stutters, or slows down in any way at all. You can play virtually any game you want on this phone on high settings without any problems. And I feel like it's gonna stay fast for a long time. So you're definitely gonna be set when it comes to speed, performance. All that stuff is great on the S23. And now one more thing that's sort of tied to performance, or at least the chip itself, is battery. Because the battery life definitely can vary depending on the chip you have in the phone. And since, Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 is a really efficient chip, it does affect battery life, and in this case it affects it in a positive way in my opinion. Even though it is a compact phone, the battery life is nice. It's not like the best you can get on a phone. Of course there are phones with better battery life because it is a smaller phone, and smaller phone means smaller battery. But I've never had issues with battery life because with moderate usage, this phone always gets me through the day with no problems. I've never had a day where I had to top it up at any point. Now lately I haven't been using it that much, so as you can see, I still have 2.5 days available with 56%. But yeah, also if you have this phone or any Samsung phone that has this feature, be sure to turn on the battery protection feature. That's, like it says, adjust charging behavior to extend the lifespan of your battery. So I'm gonna pop that on right now. And if you are a heavy user and you feel like this battery can last you all day, you can always jump into display settings, go down here to motion smoothness and change it from adaptive to standard, and that should lock your phone working at 60 Hertz instead of 120. And in my experience, that can save a lot of battery life, even up to 20%. Now I like to keep it on 120 because it does make the experience of using the phone today much better. The phone feels just snappier, smoother, faster. You know the deal with the hertz is, more hertz, more fast and stuff. But sometimes possibly if you're going to be away from your charger for an extended period of time, that's something you can do to mitigate the battery consumption. So like I said, not the best battery out there, but definitely a full day battery life. And that's actually, I don't really need more than that because I'm charging my phone every day anyway. So as long as it can get me from when I wake up in the morning to when I go to sleep night, that's great battery life in my books. And that's one of the things that's been most improved since the S22 had a bit of a, mixed battery life experience for people. Again, I was fine with it as well because, like I said, I'm not a heavy user. But when I made that review, which I'll leave a link to it somewhere, a lot of people have been complaining about their battery life being, well, just not good. So they did address that with the S23 series, and at least in my experience, battery life is much better. So if you possibly have an S22 and you're not happy with your battery life, this is a good choice. And one more thing we had to talk about, which of course is one of the most important things to most people, as well as to me, and that's cameras. Now this phone has 3 cameras on the back. It has the main ultra-wide 50 megapixel sensor, a 10 megapixel telephoto with a 3x optical zoom, and a 12 megapixel ultra wide. And you already know what I'm going to say about these cameras because they are great, and they actually got even better as time went by. They've been just upgrading the performance of the cameras with every software update. So now after 12 months and over, this camera is actually better than ever. Photos are really nice and sharp. It has accurate colors, great nighttime performance as well. And if you want to play around with it and jump into that 50 megapixel mode, you will get some additional details. So that's something that you want to do. Hold on, my cat is... it's fine. She's gonna make noise now. But I would actually recommend, at least for most people, to stick with that 12 megapixel shot. Unless you really want to pixel peep and zoom in a whole bunch, you're really not gonna see that big of a difference, and it does save space. So I recommend you going with the regular 12 megapixel shot in most cases. Also on the front, you do get one 12 megapixel selfie camera. Really solid performance for a selfie camera. It's not as good as the ones on the back, of course. I have a soft box right here. I am completely backlit now, and you can still see my face perfectly, which a lot of phones aren't actually able to do that easily. And the fact that the S23 can do that, it's actually really good. You can shoot video up to 8K at 30 frames per second, which I don't know why you would want to do, at least now in 2024. I feel like it's a bit of an overkill. And when it comes to video, Samsung did actually step their game up quite a bit, even though, at least in my opinion, iPhone's videos still come out on top most of the time, but this is a really, really nice update. And I feel like Samsung is really getting there. For photos, it's a bit more subjective, and I feel like, I could go both ways. Sometimes Samsung takes better photos, sometimes iPhone does, while with video, iPhones do come out on top in most cases still, but this is a really, really big advancement for Samsung, and that gap is getting smaller every day. You do have a lot of great features when it comes to this camera. There's not a huge difference between the regular S23 and the S23 Ultra. So if you want a nice camera experience, this phone is definitely a good choice. You do miss out on that 100x digital zoom, but in my opinion, that's a bit of a gimmick anyway. So all that being said, should you get this phone a year later in 2024? And the answer is, well, I don't really know. If you want like a nice compact, all around device with a nice display, great performance, battery life, and cameras, this is a great choice. But on the other hand, if you're looking for like the best of the best, and of course you want a bigger phone than this, then you might want to go with something like the Ultra. And if you want to compare this to the S24 and the S24 Ultra and like the whole new series that came out recently, in my opinion, there's really not a huge difference. And the S24 is basically S23 with some AI features. So if you are into AI, I guess you might want to check it out. But all in all, this is a great choice. So let me know in the comments if you have this phone, how do you feel about it? And if you're thinking about getting one for yourself. Again, shoot me a comment if you have any questions, and I'll do my best to answer to a lot of them. Video.